Hi guys, welcome back to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Shimmons. Thanks for joining the show once again. This week we just have a great guest in person, coming to you direct from the Mourne Mountains in Northern Ireland. I sit down with Zak Hanna, who is just an amazing athlete, a real uphill specialist, winner of the Mont Blanc VK a few years ago, fifth place at Worlds in Thailand, podiuming at the European Championships. Just a real great mountain runner. We dig into so many topics. It's just a fun conversation. I will just let you sit back and enjoy it. First off, I also want to give a shout out to the sponsors. xmiles.co.uk for all your nutrition needs. Use the code IRunForMountains. Link down below in the description and code on the screen. It kicks us a few quid each month to help us run the show, and you get a bit of a discount as well. And also the great apparel company, GOREWEAR. Use the code IRunOverMountains30 for a massive 30% discount on all of that stuff. The Conqueror jacket, the half tights, the new windbreaker. I'm using all of this stuff, and it's amazing kit. I wouldn't be using it if I didn't like it, and it's just a great deal as well with that 30% off. So use the codes, support our sponsors, they support us, we keep doing this. Anyway, we appreciate you, and I hope you enjoy the interview with Zak. So let's roll it. Zak Hanna, welcome to Trail Talk. Another in-person podcast, this one, and so I'm happy that you've been the second live guest. How you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, looking forward to the chat.
Repping the current sponsor. Good to see.
Yes, new bonds.
How's training been going this year?
Train's been going well. Actually, the last few weeks I've started to see a bit of a hopeful return to previous form. Of this last week, I've found a pop in my legs that I haven't had, I say, in well over 2 years. I'm running routes that are very hilly, but I'm covering them in quicker time now with less effort, and the legs just feel good. So I go away to Font here on Tuesday for a camp. So I don't want to tempt fate and go too hard now and then leave myself empty for camp. But yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to just push on fitness and see if the shape can further develop and just see where we are come summertime.
I put out a call for questions on Instagram and also on the Trail Talk WhatsApp, and we did get a lot of questions in that we'll cover on the live show.
Okay.
But there's some great topics as well that people asked if we could chat about, and I think maybe the first one, which would be a good one to start, um, is just setting the scene on how you got into the sport because you started off in youth cycling and equestrian,
Yeah.
and then you moved into running. So maybe we could just like set the scene on what age you were when you started doing that, why you were doing it, and why did you make the jump into mountain running?
Yeah, it was a very good question. I suppose you have to look back a long time ago. Both my parents very influential in my sporting choices very early on in my life. My mum was still is very keen into horses and show jumping and whatnot, and is heavily involved in the equestrian community. And just through that, naturally, you want to just, oh, mummy, I want to get on a horse. Next thing, you have a pony arrives for Christmas, and um, sort of that set the tone for, I'd say, the next 17, 18 years of my life. Competed in show jumping competitions all over Northern Ireland, and done some cross country as well, done the odd hunt. Yeah, I'm just pretty much involved in that for a long, long time and loved it. It's taught me a lot, which would stand me in good stead going on to in the future. And then cycling came about with my dad. He was working abroad at the time, and he just started cycling back and forth to work where he was in Switzerland at the time. It's just because the cycle paths over there, just easier for him to get back and forth to work instead of having to drive all the time. So when he came home, he joined the local cycling club, and naturally, whenever he was working abroad, didn't see him as much. Wherever he went, I had to go. So got a mountain bike. Well, it wasn't probably the sort of JJB sports standard mountain bike, wasn't anything special. And done a few local mountain bike races with them and got hooked. I'd say right up until I was 22, 23. Both sports were a huge part of my life. Even then, that's when I was running. But then tail end of 2015, that just cycling just wasn't going as well for me as I would have liked. Doing loads of training and just performances weren't doing the justice, and just got fed up and decided to take 2 weeks off no cycling just to try and mentally and physically refresh to see if I could just find a spark again. That spark never came back, and in that 2 weeks, I just started doing a bit of running, fitness. I live on the slopes of Slieve Crib, and uh, just naturally, you go out of my yard and you look up there, Slieve Crib, so you just naturally run to the top, run back down, which is 8k, and wasn't thinking anything of it. And then there's a couple of members of Dramar Cycling Club who also ran at the time. You'll know them, Dan Wilson, Brian Wilson. I've often said, you've got the perfect build to be a runner. Why don't you give it a go? So I think it was in January 2016. Went along to a Newcastle AC training session Tuesday night, and first question they asked me what was my time for the Mill Hill Mile. I was like 6:02 or 6:03 or something. So off that, they put me into this group and I was dropping them all. I was like 5 or 6 by a mile. And
Which is a 1 mile uphill race.
yes,
Right?
it's a 1 mile uphill road race. Now, it doesn't look steep when you look at the profile, but when you're actually standing at the bottom of the hill and looking up, it's quite frightening. But Dion McNeely, he has the record. It's 4:59. I now have the second quickest time, 5:10 on it. But back then, I was just running for the crack. Competition didn't come about at all. And then after a few runs with the club, jumped into the British Federal Championships, got absolutely assaulted there.
I remember those years.
Borderline GBH, actually, that's what that was. And I can remember being like top 20 to the top of Sleeve Honor. By the end, it was 150th. So, like, it was a massive baptism of fire, but after that, I was hooked. I know I got abused that day, but I want more. This is class. And I just started running a lot more, going out more with the club on the weekends and stuff. And so I just never looked back from there. Just decided, right now, running, I think I've found the sport here, and I really, really love this. And I just want to see what I can do with it.
At what age did you start the equestrian and cycling? And with the equestrian, as the audience and myself also, I have no clue other than it's something on a horse.
Yeah.
I kind of know what it looks like. Does that build strength or endurance, or like were you laying foundations there as a kid?
Well, when you own a horse, you can't just put it into the stable and leave it there. You have to feed it. You have to make sure it's got water. You have to clean out its bed every day. You have to make sure there's shavings. You're hauling around bales of haylage. It's a physically demanding sport. Not even when you're on the horse, but also when you're off the horse. So from a very young age, I was hauling heavy things around. Like, I'm not a big, even now I'm not a big fella. So like back then, I was no height. I was probably carrying bales of hay and bales of shavings that are probably twice the weight of me and 3 times the height. So a lot of that there just sort of set the foundation in terms of making me just more robust and more physically strong. Maybe not fit as in aerobically fit, but definitely physical strength was one thing it did help with. And if you're able to control a 2 ton animal with just a set of reins in your hands and your legs, you know, my lower body, especially my core and all, was just extremely strong from that. And if you go out and do a round of show jumps, or you go out onto the cross country course, or you go and do a hunt, that night you're physically wrecked. And the more you do it, it's like anything, the more you do it, the less it takes out of you. But I done that. I think I was maybe 6 or 7 when I got my first pony. And before that, my mum was taking me for lessons, just teaching me all the basics of how to ride a horse, which it's not easy. I can guarantee it's not easy. Like, there's people out there make it look easy, but that's just because they're naturally gifted at it. But I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I just love getting out, and there's nothing better than taking a horse for a gallop across the field. Love that. Got into cycling when I must have been 9 or 10, I think. And I've done that for 11 years up until Christmas 2015, and then, as I said, didn't stop horse riding until it was the guts of, I'm going to say 2018. I think I stopped horses when I realised, right, I want to try and see how far I can take running. but I need to take a step back from horses here just to really give it a good go. But to be honest with you, even though I said I would quit during the winter there over the past few years, I've been known to just get on and take the horse out first then. Just to chill. Take one, just something different. It takes your mind off running too. And it just brings you back to the childhood and you get to switch off for an hour, 2 hours. It's
Yeah.
nice.
And do you, like, whenever you were competing on the horse, were you competitive?
I was competitive at amateur level, you would say. I never, and how it is in equestrian is if you want to go and compete for Ireland and all, like you need to be seriously competing at a high level. I never.
Because the standard of that would be very high.
Oh, very high. Because Ireland, Ireland, it produces some absolutely class racehorses and as well show jumping horses and eventers. Like Ireland is very, very good at producing horses in general and athletes for the equestrian sport. And for me, it wasn't. My mum never competed at a high level. She competed at what we call riding club level, so like club level. That's basically what the level I competed at. But went to shows all over Northern Ireland. Competed at Balmoral a few times too, which was very, very fun. I actually enjoyed competing in such in front of the big crowds. Like for anyone that doesn't know Balmoral show, it's probably the Northern Ireland's biggest agricultural show. It used to be held at the King's Hall. That's where I competed. Now it's held at the Old Maid's Prison. But yeah, experiences I got there sort of set you up for going forward because it just makes you want like sport's always been a part of my life. And been having cycling and show jumping so early on sort of set the foundation that made me want to have sport in my life for a very, very long time.
And then whenever you started cycling, you were competitive at a youth level, right?
Competitive at youth and the early part of the under juniors lost under 23 level, yeah. Won a couple of races as a youth cyclist across road cycling, XC mountain biking, and cyclocross. A couple of podiums in Irish Youth Championships from under 10 right up to under 16 level. And whenever I got to junior, which is like probably 16 to 18-year old, some success there. And then when I got to under 23 and was sort of 18 plus, I still hadn't quite grown yet. I was still small, didn't have as much power. Whereas my mates they were all growing up to 6 foot, like tanks, got a power about them.
More power.
I had nothing. And I was just like, they were going away to compete in Belgium and all and represent Ulster and represent Ireland. And I just been left behind. Essentially, and to be honest with you, early on it didn't fizz me, but the more I got older and I realised, right, well, nothing's happening here. Always had in the back of my head, oh, I'd love to go and race in Belgium. I would love to go and try and compete abroad. It just never happened. I never, to be honest with you, had I followed the same path as my mates and had grown at the same time as them, who knows where it could have taken me, but it just wasn't for me. And the way I looked at it was when it came to Christmas 2015, I just thought, right, well, I need to do something here. I can't just be going to races and getting a hiding every week because it's just no fun. You want to be out enjoying yourself. You want to be having some success. I just wasn't getting it. And I just kind of thought, right, well, something needs to change here.
Whenever you come into the mountain running scene here in Northern Ireland in the Mournes, I'd been running the Nimra series for probably 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
And I remember you coming in and there's this new young guy. And it felt like every couple of years or nearly every year, there was a new person that rose to the front. So I remember you coming in as this, talked about young gun,
Oh,
so to speak. And then you had strength. You were strong on the climbs.
Mhm.
And then after what felt like maybe a couple of years, you were then, right up at the front. What did you work on to improve there? Or how did you do that? Or what was the mental process for you?
I think when you know yourself that whenever I came into the sport, the two main men were Seamus Lynch, William McKee. And to be honest with you, I'll always say this: it's just turning up every week and getting busted by them. Just getting those boys taught me lessons in the hills that I probably never would have had if they weren't racing because they taught me how to just go hard and chasing. You know how good at the centre Seamus Lynch is, one of the best I've ever seen. Chasing him down a mountain does wonders for your just your overall ability as a runner. And I think as well, just being consistent and just trying to always look for a way to get better. After my first years, after probably I'd say September 2016, I had just returned from the World Championships, and that's when I got introduced to my current coach, Richard Rogers. And since I've joined him, then the training and racing really took another step up to another level. Before that, I was just going out for a run. I wouldn't say I was doing long run sessions, doing a club session Tuesday night, but I was just going out and running for the crack. Like I didn't know what you had to do to be a fast runner. I just thought go out and run, and that was really it. There was no secret to it. I was just enjoying it. Still am enjoying it, but back then you're naive. You just you don't know. It's just like anyone who comes new to the sport, you're always going to be learning. You're still learning to this day. Like,
Well, I think whenever we all started, we all just thought you just had to run. But
if only that was the case.
at a certain point, just running isn't enough.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's pretty much what happened to me because I remember going to Snowdon, got picked for the Northern Ireland team going to Snowdon, and again, I think it was just outside top 10 of it. But then I went down to the Irish trial, and when I won the Irish trial, thought I'm going to the World Championships. This is good. But when I went to the World Championships and got finished 22 minutes behind the winner, then I came home and I just thought, nah, that doesn't sit with me. Something I need to do something here. And then, as I say, got introduced to my current coach, and then sort of had a chat with him, and he explained things to me. And, you just have to trust what he says, and go from there.
So you were already able to get to compete at Worlds before you kind of turned the corner
Yeah.
and had a real focus with a dedicated coach. Prior
Yeah.
to that, you were still just doing whatever the club were prescribing on Thursday night or whatever.
Pretty much. I had just a lot of people had previously said, "Oh, hill reps, hill reps." So I was going on like after work on a Thursday night, going up on the Slave Crib and doing like car park the summit's just under a mile. I was doing like 3 or 4 times up and then coming down the rough side over the fells and doing that, not getting back in the door till 9:30 at night. I was going out. That's what I was doing after work, and as I said, as you say, there's only so much you can do on your own before you have to try and do something else to sort of bring your fitness and your ability to run up another level.
It was one of the things that you really had to work on was the descending.
Yes.
How did you go about that?
It's just I was always told that you either have it or you don't. Those that have it just have this natural ability to let go. And I know many's a runner who have that ability. I don't. I have, as I say, I just going over rough ground, not so much rough ground, but going over ground that is uneven, it's rough enough, and
You
just
don't know what it is?
yes, and just not throwing yourself, because obviously you need to have a bit of sense there where you don't want to come off the mountain injured. But it's just going over the same, maybe finding a path, right? Going repetitive stuff over, just trying to get used to, right? There's a 1 kilometer stretch of downhill there. Can I be 5 seconds quicker next time I go down it? It's just doing things like that there, just trying to learn how to read lines, how to read rocks, and just trusting yourself that you're not going to fall. I think that's the biggest thing. Trusting yourself that you're not going to fall and that you're going to be safe enough, just as long as you just be smart about the whole thing.
So you were competing here, you were doing well, you went to Worlds, you were competing for Northern Ireland and for Ireland, and then at some point you joined the youth team at Solomon in what probably has to be said as Solomon's heyday. The Killian years, Solomon TV, if you think about the names that were associated with Team Solomon then,
Yeah.
Like Remy Benet was a kid.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? How did you get onto the youth team?
Well, I wasn't actually on the youth team. I know the team you're talking about, the Solomon, the Young Gun Academy. I never got onto Solomon through that. It was actually just the UK setup I was on. I can remember Snowdon being introduced to the commentator at Snowdon, Matt Ward, who turned out to be the UK man for Solomon. And after Snowdon had been introduced to him, and got his email, and the next thing I was told, stay in touch. So like I think 3 or 4 months later, I might have sent him an email to say I was selected for the words and stuff. And after that, no, sorry, this is 2017. I'm going to say it's 2017, and I was sort of starting to think, right, well, I want to take the sport a bit more seriously. Had a couple of good results. Was selected again for the Europeans and the Worlds for Ireland in 2017, and then it came to the tail end of 2017 where I contacted Solomon, well Matt, and yeah, it was good. Yeah, they were like, yeah, down on like we've been following you since Snowden, so we would like to bring you on board. Got a bit of kit, and that was really it. But like it wasn't there was no contract or anything involved. It was just a verbal agreement as such. So got kit, and yeah, I just basically was given kit that I never realised how light rolling shoes could be up until that point. I had bought myself a pair of the old Slab 5s before I joined Solomon, and then obviously you're getting the 6s, you're getting the 7s, and you realise, crap, there's actually some really quality running gear out here. And then, as I say, I just kept going and going, kept running, trying to get the results. And then, as I say, back then, that's when the VK and all was a big thing. And then I was sort of like, right, well, I want to be a good VK runner like Remy and stuff. And I think it was 2018 when the Solomon Skyline was on in Kinlochleven. I had got Solomon said like there's a space in the hotel here for you if you want to come along and do the VK or whatever race you want. So we done the VK and won the VK. It was my first ever VK, and I
And that,
won.
that was a big event. Like for a number of years, that
Yeah.
was a real premium event.
Oh, it was massive. Like
That was around the time whenever skyrunning was having its kind of renaissance in the UK.
it was having its renaissance because then that was the start. I think it was the first or second year of Golden Trail, maybe the first year, sorry, of Golden Trail, and that's when it was on. And is it going anymore? Skyline Scotland.
Yes,
It is,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Well, as I
So it's
say,
not part of any series.
no. Well, I say that I had never been to that part of Scotland before, and like unreal. Won the VK by like 4 minutes. But yeah, I kind of thought, well, if I'm performing at a race this level, hopefully the top one and Salmon are sort of noticing, and this maybe lead on to something further. But no, nothing ever really came to fruition. I just kept rolling, and yeah, kept every year kept getting kept sent them and whatnot, and then as I say, it just sort of you could see the transition from VK was the main thing, and next thing when the Golden Trail came in, everything just shifted overnight to VKs were no longer interested in that. Everyone had to be running Golden Trail. Everyone had to be doing marathons over the mountains and all. And I kind of felt like I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that. And I was always I was always cautious about burnout. I didn't want to be throwing myself into something that was just going to make me sick of myself, like it did in the cycling. You were pushing yourself that hard and then you get fed up with it and you quit. I didn't want that. I've been very, very cautious over the last few years, or since I've started, that I don't want to burn out. I want to try and keep going for as long as I can. I was very cautious about that. As I say, I just wanted to keep doing the VKs and even following, like doing the VKs in the WMRA World Cup, and wasn't getting any attention. There's no real appetite for it as such.
What was the motivation to go down the kind of World Mountain Running Association path? Because that was a set path with a lot of the classic races.
Mhm.
Then there was the sky running, which then really got superseded by Golden Trail,
Yeah.
and now WMRA is very popular now, and it's getting kind of the it's back in the news, so to speak, the
Mhm.
last few years, and it coexists
Yeah.
with Golden Trail. So why did you continue to focus down that route?
Well, to be honest with you, what I liked about the World Cup was the racing suited me. That there literally is no other reason for it. Racing suited me, and I liked the profile of a lot of them because, like, you've got the upper races, like some of the ones I've done, which still I'll love to return to someday. There's Dry Zenon in the Dolomites, absolutely class. Where else is there? Grossglockner. A lot of the classic uphill races that anyone who's been in the scene over the last 10, 15 years will know of. And I got an appetite to race in those races every year. Done, obviously, you've got your back to back races like, Flat Trail, Trophy of Nafsigo, Vertical Nafsigo, races like that. Like Vertical Nafsigo was probably one of the best VKs that I've ever ran. Didn't win it, finished second, but it was one of those races where everything just seemed to click on the day. And as well, coming to the World Championships, I love the uphill races. Doesn't have to be a VK as such, but anything that went uphill I was there, always trying to plan the racing calendar about, right, where's the best VKs, where's the best uphill races. Wasn't so much interested in the up and down, but if there was an opportunity to say, do a back to back race and there was an up and down the day after, by all means I done that. But the World Cup just seemed to suit me, and as well, getting entry for the races, whenever you have a couple of good results behind you, obviously organisers want to have you at the races. Once you get a bit of a name for yourself, it just, there's no real requisition as you have to have a certain amount of points or you have to have X, Y, and Z the race. If you're an elite and you're competing, say, in the top 10 of a World Cup race, you're going to get invited, you're going to get entries, you're going to get accommodation, transfers. Maybe if you're lucky enough, parents fee, and you're going to get, your flights paid. It just, the friendliness of it too. There was no real elitism as such. Obviously, they look after elite athletes, but a lot of the races take place in villages and towns where the local community is all involved, and there's no real commercial idea behind it.
Yeah, it feels more like sport
Yep.
rather than sports entertainment.
Exactly, and that's what and still to this day draws me to it. Like,
Yeah.
the World Cup's doing its best. I see they're going to China this year. Now, I had looked at going to China, but just the logistics of it, for me, I just thought, no, I'll spend the summer here just to race in Europe. Just, I wanted to stay in Europe for the summer, and by all means, if it's going to China next year, I definitely would consider trying to go. But they're trying to expand. It's good to see, instead of just keeping the World Cup in Europe. They're trying to, they're going to California now for Broken Arrow, which I've been to twice, and going to China. That's the type of stuff they need to be at. And obviously, going to China would be a massive cultural introduction for me, which I would be excited to go. But you say it's not sports entertainment; it's sport. It's trying to bring the best mountain runners in the world together. And I really do hope that it continues to coexist with all the other series that are going at the minute.
WMRA is like the track and field of mountain running.
Yeah.
It has that kind of feel about it. And a lot of those classics that are associated with it are the races that previous generations, the greats of those generations have done. So you can benchmark yourself against those of 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, that's it. You speak to, like, I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time with some of the best mountain runners that the UK and Ireland and Europe have ever produced. And it all goes back to, you talk to them, say if they're raced in the late 80s, early 90s, what's your favourite races? They all go back to your classics, Trophy of Winona, the Grossglockner. Like, I know Brian Irvine and all have raced Grossglockner. So it's when you hear the races, I respect the old school runners a lot. Whatever they tell me, I'm more than likely to take it on because they've been there and done it. And when you hear them talking about races like Trophy of Benoni, for example, you only have to look at the record of the quickest times around that course and you look at the names in that and you realise that is a race with history. It's not just something that's been born the last 5-6 years just to make a few quid.
Yeah. What do you make of the way the Golden Trail has sort of evolved? It started off, the name of it, the Golden Trail, because it was the classic trail races that, the headline races that people knew of, Zak Hanna and Marathon de Mont Blanc and Sierre Zanal and things like this. And now it's expanded out to other regions, which some people think whenever I say this, I'm criticizing, the expansion out of Europe. It's not that. It's more just that we're dropping races like Dolomites to bring in something else. Whereas I like what Skyrunning have done, whereas they've expanded globally, but they haven't dropped off classics in Europe. Well, how do you feel about the way the Golden Trail is evolving?
When it came about, initially I was excited about it. I kind of thought, oh, this is cool. But then it got to the point where I was racing the VKs now, and then obviously the attitude from Salomon switched. They were the ones bankrolling it. So it came to, like, we want our athletes to be doing Golden Trail. And, like, as I go back to what I said earlier, I didn't want to throw myself into something that was going to have me hate running in a year or two's time, because they're long distances. There's no way about it. Like Marathon du Mont Blanc, what's the record? 3 hours 45. I ran 3 hour long run 6 weeks ago and you killed me. Personally, I'm just not built, or I just don't have the capacity to go for that long. I've just come to accept, and it's not that I've come to accept it. I like doing the distances I do, and I didn't feel right being forced into doing something that wasn't gonna suit me. I was gonna be going there representing Salomon, and say if I was the last Salomon runner over the line, or if it didn't finish, then you're going home in a bad mood because you think I didn't finish that, and then you sort of think, well, what Salomon think of that? I felt a lot of pressure then, which I didn't like. I hate racing when there's a lot of pressure on me, especially whenever it comes to like when you have a sponsorship thing in place as well. And it was then, I think it was 2020, whenever COVID hit, and then I was going over to Italy toward the tail end and doing all the classic races and getting good results. There's still no appetite from Solomon to like say, right, well, here we can maybe give you something, maybe help you out a bit more. There was nothing like that, and I remember I was actually told in 2021 that if I wanted a pro contract from any brand, I'd have to compete in Golden Trail, and I kind of thought, well, that's the nail in the coffin for me. I felt like that's wrong.
Was that an independent opinion, or was that a Golden Trail opinion?
Both, and both. And the email came. Like I remember 2021 had a good summer. Obviously, COVID was still active at that stage, but I had managed to get dispensation from Athletics Northern Ireland to go and compete abroad as an elite athlete. So had good results, and then, as I say, Golden Trail was still all everyone was talking about. And the World Cup, sorry, suffered because of that, because everyone was sort of prioritizing Golden Trail, which I didn't. I kind of thought, well, it just shows you everyone's going to where the money is. I know the money's good in Golden Trail, but there's a lot of you have to tick a lot of boxes before you can get involved with the elite side of things, which is kind of like you're taking away the enjoyment of it.
If anything, the recent changes in Golden Trail have brought the distances a bit closer to your wheelhouse now. Sears and Al's the longest race.
Sears and all near killed me this year, so I'm not going back. It'd be a long time before I go back near it. I went, oh, I still get nightmares about how much I suffered that day.
The entries were a couple of days ago, and I managed to get one, so I'm going this year.
Well, I got the one about the elite, and it was a swift elite. That's a fact. I said, no, not a chance. Don't get me wrong, Sears not absolutely iconic race in the sport, but when I got to 2 hours, my mental capacity to go any further was just like, where's the finish line? And you're like, yeah, I've still got another 45, 50 months to go here. It's not going to be coming anytime soon. Um, but yeah, they definitely are getting closer. But as I said, at the same time, it's like you have to, if you want to run Golden Trail, like in my opinion, you have to forget about every other series, which is what was played to me whenever I was with someone. Was like, if you want to get a pro contract with us, you have to just neglect everything else and come race what we want you to race. Which is kind of like, I can understand sponsors want their certain races, but you need to have that bit of freedom. And then, as I say, it's just sort of 2022 was really seeing a different change in how their attitude towards the shorter distances of the VKs just completely just disappeared.
One of the kind of fun questions somebody submitted on Instagram uh, was Greg Valet the Helmut Marko of trail running in the 2010s? And Helmut Marko is the guy who picks the Red Bull youth in the Formula One team, and he's known to be like a real shark. Like, if you want to keep your seat, you have to win, and he's like that pressure, and if you don't, you're out. What was your dealings with Greg?
Well, I can remember an Instagram message at the 2021 saying he wanted at the start of 2021. Sorry, saying that he wanted to sort of see me compete in the Golden Trail. He said he's willing to give me a bit of support financially to pay for my flights and stuff to go to these races, and that was all right. But at the same time, I was glad I done them. I done Sky Rune, done Dolomites. Dolomites is one of them races where, to be honest with you, the downhill didn't suit me. But whenever you're summiting the top of Pisboy and you're ahead of Davide Magnini, and you're 20 seconds behind, Rema, you're looking at like, well, there's definitely you're definitely not one of the worst climbers in the world
I
here.
remember watching that stream, and it was exciting. But you're right;
You know,
it's an amazing up and a down.
it's an amazing up and down. The downhill was scary. I've actually got a picture of me going along the ridge and the helicopter's hovering right beside me. That picture I think will stick with me forever because it just shows you how high up you are. And I had a brilliant uphill that day. I know the downhill wasn't great, finished just inside top 30, but I was absolutely buzzing with my uphill that day. But yet, there was no acknowledgement of it. Like, I know obviously the overall result does count, but there's no like encouragement for after. So, brilliant uphill. So next year when you come back, we want you to work on your downhill. Nothing like that. It was just you didn't win. So, and I kind of thought, well, I was just losing, getting a bit disheartened with the whole thing. Well, I just wasn't happy with the way that he was basically, oh, you won't do what we want you to do, so you're just going to get left out the rat there. Wasn't too happy with it.
And then coming to in the final sort of part of the Salomon relationship, you had like a spectacular run and you won the Mont Blanc VK, like one of the most well known.
It would be, yeah, because it's Chamonix.
Yeah.
Anyone who went, like,
it's part of the Mont Blanc Marathon
yeah.
Weekend. That weekend is the second biggest running weekend in Chamonix.
Yeah,
the year.
There's not too many people get to say they've stood in the podium in Chamonix and won a race. That's my take on it, and that's something I'm very proud of.
What was that? What was it like? What was that day like? It was a COVID year. We chatted before hitting record, and we were saying that the face masks ruined the podium picture.
Yeah, it was just a real thing because obviously you're starting the evening. I was off. I think I was off maybe 7 or 8 from the end. Long day, just sitting about, eating. I'm trying not to eat too much because obviously it's going to be a hard effort, so you don't need a whole lot of fuel behind you. You don't want to be sick or anything, but I think everything that night just aligned because if you've done the VK, when you get to the top of the switchback, it turns into ropes and ladders. At that point, there's the thing for the chip and the number. And I remember when I got to there, I kind of had caught maybe 10 people in front of me. And I knew rightly, I said, right, I'm having a good run here. Everything's feeling good. If I can just get a smooth transition over the ladders, I'll be sweet. You get a lot of vertigo up there because it's sheer drop left hand side. And when I got to the finish, I was on the ground, and woman said to me, "Oh, the results aren't in yet." So I was all right. I was still almost coughing up blood at that point. And then it came in, yes, you've Zak Hanna's won over the moon, and I've seen the splits after. And second place was actually 2 seconds ahead of me before the bottom of the ladders, and I was 20 seconds ahead of him after the ladders. So I put 20 seconds into him over the bit that I actually thought I was going to lose time on. But to win that, and I remember walking through Chamonix at the big check at the trophy, and the people stopping for pictures. It was unreal. Like, it was actually something that's quite surreal. I couldn't believe I'd actually won it because my name, the trophy, you got Remy, Killian, my name's on the trophy with those boys. I was like, that's going to be there forever.
Special.
Yeah, it is special. Never actually got the trophy. The one let me take it home. The one let me take it home, and I was like quite annoyed with that, but sure, it is what it is.
How long did it take?
I think it was 35 minutes.
That's unreal.
I think it was 35 low or 34 high. I actually can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it was in around that. It was good. It was good night.
Unbelievable. And moving on from Salomon, now you're with New Balance. What was the transition like? Why did you make that decision? How did you make the decision? And how did the New Balance opportunity come around?
Because 2022 was just an unbelievable year for me results wise. Fourth in Europeans, fifth in the Worlds, and third overall in the World Cup. Sort of the conversations came about. My coach knew a fellow who coached a lot of New Balance athletes, and we've been toying because at that stage I was really looking for new opportunities. So obviously we were looking about and just contacted him off the cuff and just said, look, what opportunities is there in New Balance? Think who you contact, and he put the word out to sports marketing. Then they got in touch with me and said, yeah, we have been tracking you for a while, most of 2022, and then saying that they were keen to talk, sent me out kit to try, and say from the minute I tried it on, I was like, this is really good stuff. And yeah, I was basically right about try that kit, go to the Worlds, don't worry about us, just go and run your own race. And then when you come fifth, the next thing, the emails are coming through, like, you're right, Zach, can we get a chat with you in the next week or two? And I've actually had ASICs come in as well for me, and spoke to both, and just New Balance, what they were presenting me with was like that was a good opportunity, and New Balance is a good brand, so is Asics, but I like more with what New Balance were trying to do, and they hadn't set up the trail team at this stage, which pretty much just trying to get athletes on board to test prototypes and just give them feedback on their kit. So obviously signed with them in March 2023. And I've renewed a 2 year contract, so I've renewed for another 2 years as of January this year. So yeah, no, it came about pretty. I wouldn't say it came about quickly. It was sort of from sort of October time. It was sort of brewing. Then obviously November had like World Worlds, and then I say come the end of January that was decision was made. But then because there's no contract or anything with Salomon, it was just an email to say that that's my decision, but wasn't that well received. And then I say that's the email came through saying that the only way I was going to get a pro contract. That was in October, sorry, after October, whenever I was sort of getting ready for the Worlds, and I sort of reflecting on the year beforehand, before going to the Worlds, and like I've had this year, said to Solomon, you know, what is there for me beyond this? I was pretty much, well, unless you're running Golden Trail, you're not gonna get a pro contract with us or any other brand. And I'm like, well, let's see about that. So I pretty much, it wasn't that I had a point to prove. We just wanted to show them that Golden Trail isn't everything. That was pretty much it. And no, I'm with New Balance now. Actually, best decision I've made in my running so far because they look after you. Kit is brilliant. It's getting better. Casual kit as well, just for wearing about out and about, unreal too. And there's just a good community and the team's good. I get on very well with the teammates, team management, team staff. And like I think this year's gonna be a very good year for the team. We've had a successful challenge day by UTMB there. A very good weekend there for the team. So we've actually on the 4th, the 9th of May with the team week in Chamonix. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting out and seeing everyone and seeing being introduced to the new teammates.
And do New Balance have a focus on any series, or is it a broad kind of spread?
It's a broad kind of spread. Yes, there's races. Obviously, they've signed a 5 year contract to sponsor the Marathon de Mont Blanc, which is massive. That actually, I think, is a very good thing for them, given the history. We know how good that race weekend itself is. So I'm doing the 23K in it. I'm going to give it a go. Now, for me, that's long. 2 hours 15 to race that. So I'm actually really looking forward to it because I was actually looking at it last year, just didn't work out racing wise, didn't work out for me, so I didn't do it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to giving it a go, and as well, UTMB and Road to ETC, give it a go as well. And then obviously you've got the runners in there who are doing UTMB, TDS, CCC, OCC, but with a good range of runners. You've got runners like myself who focus on the shorter distances. Then you've got right up in the like David Shiraz, he runs all the ultra long stuff, and Davide Meanini's now in the team, and you know,
He's a recent signing. He came on last year.
yeah, he was injured now. He's been injured the last year, so I don't think he's actually ran too many races now. But yeah, he's on the team as well, and no, as I say, the team's very much yes, we'll have races we want to do, but we want that for me. In my opinion, if a brand seems to be doing every distance instead of focusing on the one, it's better because it sort of I think it creates a identity that a brand only is suited to long distance people. Whereas there's runners out there who don't want to run long distance. Then if they see that there's athletes who are running like 10K mountain races, their gear is suited to that as well.
Yeah, it feels like back when you were coming into the sport, ultra was about to it was starting to explode and
Yeah,
it got very popular, and now it's kind of swung back to the I guess maybe we call them the middle distances.
I would call them middle distances. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment because you think like Marathon du Mont Blanc been dropped from the Golden Trail was a bit of a shock because like it's only up the road from honestly Salomon's headquarters. Like you thought that would have been I don't know what the reason was for dropping it, but races like that, New Balance have got an opportunity here now to capitalise on taking that race on board. And you think of like Dalmas, what's it, 21K? So
Yeah.
like the winner does it in 2 hours. Like that's a nice distance. And it is coming back to this middle distance for me. Whereas I like races sort of like 30 minutes to 75, 90 minutes is like my sweet spot. Um, but like when the more if I can sort of edge towards 2 hours, yes, that's fine. But I could never see me going up at like 3 hours. It's just not me.
It feels like maybe this is a natural point to move on to that sort of thing, because it's a like athletes in trail running move up the distances as they get older.
Hmm.
It's just a thing that naturally happens.
Yeah,
You know, the upper limit, the speed
yeah,
tapers off a little bit, but you can offset that decline with
going longer.
going longer with the
Yeah,
endurance. Like at some point, are you gonna go longer?
no. Well, I'm gonna say that now. I honestly, because I love running, but whenever I get to a certain distance, mentally I just zone out. I just like I don't want to. I just want to go back to the car and just chill. That's just. I think that's just because I don't have the attention span to go long. Like I say, I done that long horseshoes out for 2 hours 50. And like once we got to maybe 2:05, 2:10, I think where's the car? But you still have a good bit to go to get back. And no, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that route. You know, yourself, Aaron, one of the iconic fell races in the country. And I just thought, no, but I started like even going out and thinking about fuel, and I just find that so hard trying to like plan right how often I'm going to take a gel or a bar or a drink. I just like to run light, go out and try and go up. If I can go out and go up, down, and back down under the hour for a training run, you know, that's for me. That's what I enjoy. But like many's a day, I have often set out, and especially during the summer, I'll go out here for 3 hours in the mountains in the mornings only get 10 hour and a half and like I go back to the car here. Just I just don't have the mental capacity for it. But see, I enjoy running fast. Like I done the national 10K there in Dunboyne in 31 minutes. Love that. You know, I love running fast, but trying to go out and for 3 or 4 hours would just destroy me.
So whenever you're going out and thinking, oh, maybe go out and try 2 or 3 hours,
Hmm.
are you going out and trying to do 2 or 3 hours in a higher zone?
No, I'm actually not genuinely going out at a pace that I know I can sustain this. But like I think I've an hour and 45 minute loop in the mornings that I do, which I enjoy because it goes up the Glen River, top of Donard, around the Bromley Pad, over the Hares Gap, up over Slieve Cora, Slieve the Glock, Comada, and down in. That's about 9, 10 mile. 1 hour and 45. To me, that's a good run. I know that there's people probably listening here thinking that's 20 mile warm up, but it's horses for courses. I think if you have too many people focused on the one distance and one sport, it kind of makes it top heavy. You need to have that. You still need to have athletes focus on the short stuff. Don't think there's enough of that now. Like I know, not speaking out of turn here, but there's a attitude now I've seen actually locally here that if you're not running along, you know, you're not, you know, what are you doing? You're not a runner as such, because you know if you're not running 30K or 30K or 40K in the mountains, but you're going and doing 20, 30K in Tullymore on a Sunday. It's like, what are you doing, Sean? It's so fun. You know, there's bit of a snobbery about it, but look, it is what it is. I do think that for the good of the sport, you need to have everyone competing over all distances instead of just focused on the ultra long stuff.
I
Same goes for the ultra short stuff. If you have too many people focused on the ultra short stuff, then who do you have running UTMB? No one.
Yeah, I do have to point out that I think your stance is softened a bit more. I think 5 years ago you may have said, I would never run a marathon or I would never run an ultra. Whereas I know you're saying you wouldn't run one now,
Mm-hmm.
but you weren't as like strongly opposed to it. Like you were just like, no, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Whereas a few years ago it would have been never.
You start looking at Paisley. No, I think to be honest with you, I think as you get older and you just sort of you're around a bit more, you just sort of you become a bit more relaxed. I think back then it was in the middle of I was just probably finding my feet in the sport. Whereas now I've been in it a while, I'm sort of thinking, right, just focus on yourself. Don't be worrying about everyone else, which is what I do anyway. Like I don't really worry about what other people are at because you get too bogged down and say if someone else is running, oh my mate, say if he's running X distances and you know should I try that? You know sometimes if you just try and copy others, it doesn't work out too well. So I just focus on what I'm good at, what I enjoy, and I think that's going to help my longevity. I hope.
So just circling back to New Balance and even Salomon prior to that, I can remember whenever you were running the races here, I used to think that you were at a disadvantage running in Salomon shoes for the descending because it was at a time when there was no better shoe than a Mudclaw or a Cross Talon Innovate.
Well, that was my first ever shoe, a Cross Talon 212.
Yeah,
I can remember
a
it.
classic.
Oh, what a shoe! But I ran that shoe in the ground. I ran the roads and everything because I didn't know that road shoes existed. I thought it was just one shoe done everything. It's probably a bit stupid that way, like, but no, I can see what you mean. The morning is like, if you depending on what part of the morning you go into, you can be if you no grip, you're gonna get ripped apart.
So, what are the New Balance shoes like? Because I actually have no knowledge of their trail shoes that aren't more plush and more ultra focused. But I know you've raved about some of the shoes.
Well, you see, the one shoe, whenever I think it was 2023 when I won the Long Horseshoe, worst weather conditions I've ever ran. You might have seen the picture of us all swimming across the river at the edge of Anlong Wood. That was the first ever race where I've had to wear a marine jacket, hat, and gloves from start to finish. And even then, I probably could have done with a few more layers. But I wore the Somewhat Unknown soft ground, 6.5 mil lugs. I'm thinking this shoe is going to get. I think it was the second time wearing it. I said this shoe is going to get really tested here today. And that shoe got me around that race in the worst weather possible, worst underfoot condition I've ever seen. Even coming off the steep side of Common down to the saddle at Cove and Beg there, absolutely brilliant coming down the steep grass. And I just thought, well, whenever I finished, like when I was cleaning the shoes, like a few days later, I was like, well, that shoe can survive on a long horseshoe. It can survive anything. And still to this day, any time I go up in wet weather, that's the shoe I wear in the fells.
Yeah.
And then at the minute, they've just released the Hero V9, which is a combination of the Hero V8 and the Fresh Foam More Cross. And again, fantastic shoe. Lugs are slightly a bit more chunkier than what the Hero V8. But the Hero V8 as well is probably one of my favourites because it's fast. It's only meant for general use, not meant for racing. It is a fast shoe and there's Vibram Mega Grip on it. You can't really ask for more in a shoe, in my opinion. And as well, you've got the SC Comp, the Carbon Trail, and I think there's a new edition of it coming out. Then you have the Venom, which is probably best suited to me. It's really, really good for the uphill races. It's just super light and it's minimal grip, but I've never had any issue with any of the shoes, road or trail, and I do think things are getting better. And I do think if you're looking for a brand to try, like I'm not trying to sell anyone. This one thing that might suit me, might suit someone else. So this is the case of I'll try my best not to like force people into wearing New Balance because I don't want people coming to me saying, "Well, you told me to wear that shoe."
Well, if you do well in a race and you're wearing a shoe, that's
Well, that's it too.
influencing, and that's all the influencing you need to do.
And
Right?
that's it too. And like I do like the road shoes, the 1080s, like all I want is a comfortable shoe that allows me to, well, except it's 1080 for recovery and easy runs. I want a fast shoe for racing. I want a grippy shoe for the mud. New Balance has it all, and I'm very, very glad that they haven't. I know. Remember Salomon got rid of the Velcros, and a lot of people give off about it. And I've kind of tried to tell New Balance to keep the Summit Unknown because at some stage there is going to be a wet race. People's going to need grip.
So Summit Unknown is the one with the 6.5 mil lug.
Summit Unknown soft ground, yeah. Yeah, that's my favourite shoe for the moment.
I did not know that they had a shoe with a lug that size.
Yeah, so the 6.5 mil lug and the stack height's nice on it. It's not too low, it's not too high, it's for the mid range. But yeah, it's good. Very, very good.
So switching gears onto like the making a living as a pro runner, because you're one of the only real professional mountain runners in Ireland. Yes, there are others, but this is your full time.
Mm-hmm.
You have a number of local sponsors,
yeah.
and you've got the backing of New Balance. What's it like to kind of just make a living doing this?
Making a living's been, I wouldn't say I'm making a living. Put it this way, when I retire from running, I'm not going to be able to go out and buy a fancy car, buy a house. Like, I'm literally living very frugally, but I don't mind that. To be honest, like, whenever I decided to go full time in 2021, this is prior to turning professional with New Balance, I just kind of thought, well, I'm young, I have no commitments, like, I'm young, free, and single, as I always say. No, we don't have anything to worry about, in terms of keeping a house or anything. So I kind of thought, well, now's the chance to go and do it. So whenever I signed my first professional contract with New Balance, and then obviously I had the backing of some local sponsors, because if you're relying, you need to sort of have something that cover my flights, to cover buying race nutrition and all that stuff. I don't have a nutrition sponsor, so obviously I'm trying to pay for all that, and then you've obviously hire cars. Sometimes you have an overnight stay at the airport to do for hotels and stuff. Like, running isn't an expensive sport, but when you want to compete abroad and compete at the top, does get expensive. So it's just to help with the cost of that, and as well do some online coaching too, which basically pays my bills each month. So like, I'm not going to make a fortune out of it. Probably not going to make any money out of it, but I'm doing something that I love. I've always wanted from a very young age to be a professional athlete, whether it was in show jumping, cycling, or running. So to be able to say that I'm living the dream is an understatement. I've loved every minute of it so far. I love the lifestyle. I just love, being able to travel to places I probably never would have heard of before. And like going to Thailand, Argentina, California, Ronald's taken me to some spectacular places, and to say that's my job, like, you know, as I say, if you what's the saying? If you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life, and that's the way I view it. I get to wake up every single morning, go for a run from home with my dog, who goes everywhere with me, and I'm very very grateful that I'm able to do it, and that long may it continue.
I would always kind of thought of you as like a home bird. Like you
Yep,
love home,
yep,
but you get the opportunity to do all of this travel and see all of these amazing places. And so you're getting to like a balance of, what you love, the travel plus the
yeah.
the Dramara Hills, for lack of a better term.
When you've summed it up well, I'm a home bird. When I went to live in Italy in 2021, that was, to be honest with you, when I went out there, it made me realise how much I love home. And I don't think I'll ever move away for that length of time ever again, because it just, as I say, home's home. You've got your friends, family, the dogs there, and yeah, as I say, I've been home all winter. I haven't left the country since October, so it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to Font Remote here on Tuesday, but there's a group of Irish lads going to be out there too, so it's not going to be. I'm not going to be out on my own. I'm going to have a group of people to run with. That 4 weeks got flying. So 3 weeks in front remote, then I go to Chamonix. I'm thinking, I'm telling people are saying, well, what's your race plans? I'm like, well, I'm going to camp here. And you say you're going away to stay on the ski slope for a month, and they're like, class. When people are saying that to you, you sort of think, pretty lucky, aren't they? And you yourself aren't traveling. When you live in Northern Ireland, it's an absolutely beautiful place, especially right now when the weather's good. But I think when you travel to places like Chamonix and whatnot, they're beautiful places too. But for me, there's nothing like home. That's just the way it is. And um, yeah, I just like, when I'm given the chance, as you say, to travel, I'll go. Like going to California and everything was good. And like, yeah, like it's the sort of thing where when an opportunity is presented to me, I don't want to turn it down, because you never know when you might never get that opportunity again.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, you want to be sitting in 10, 15 years' time thinking, geez, I had a good time. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But it's I love not living here,
Yeah,
but I love
coming
coming
back.
back.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like when you're here now, you're in Newcastle here looking down onto the sea.
Well, you know what? I'm not from Newcastle, like, and for the viewers, this is where our mountains are.
Yeah.
But whenever I come home, like the first time I came back after I left the country, I stayed at my parents' house,
Mm-hmm.
and I just ended up driving here every day.
Oh,
Because, like, what are you gonna do? Stay at home all day? So I come here and run, and then go back home. So it's just ever since then, it's like, well, I'll just stay here, and then I'll visit. I'll go. It's only an hour down the road to visit them.
yeah. Well, like you're in a perfect spot here. You're 2 minutes from Donner Forest, like, and like that's what I'm saying. I'm only 15 minutes from Newcastle, so I can be, if I want to leave the house at 8 o'clock in the morning and go up Donner, I can. I can be in Donner car park for 8:15 and back home for 10 o'clock. That's, I love that. And great training ground. You've got Tullymore, you've got Castlewell Forest. Like, I've everything I need here except altitude. If this place was altitude, probably never leave. You wouldn't have to go away and camps or anything. That's the only thing with me and my training group. We've always said that. It's like E10 without the altitude. But no, it's a great place. But the world needs explored, and you want to be doing a bit of that yourself.
Totally. I mean, we have everything you need here for great training. And whenever I lived here, one of the things people used to say was, the European runners are better at descending because they get to do, 1,500 meter descent. And the longest we have, I mean, we've got one 800 meter descent, and the rest of them, our climbs and descents are like 300 to 500 meters.
Yeah,
Max.
probably last 3-4 minutes max too. But it's like you just have to. It's what you're dealt with. You can't really change that unless you want to put permission to tell the council to put the mountains up another 1,000 meters. But probably better than the gondola before. But look, it is a great place, and I am a home bird. I'm not gonna shy away from that. But yeah, no, home's home, and I love
But you're actually reminding me there. It was whenever you were in Italy.
it. Mm-hmm.
That's whenever we had that chat, and I was saying to you, "Are you gonna stay away, or are you moving there for good?" Let's chat a little bit about Worlds. We have World Championships in Canfranc later this year.
Yeah.
What's your plans around that? Do you have to qualify? What's that look like?
Well, the trial for the Irish uphill and up and down races are on the 6th and 8th of June. Yeah, in Ballyhura. So the trial for the uphill race is 4K, 300 meters of climbing.
I was gonna say, why is the trial for an uphill race somewhere where there's not even a big mountain?
I don't know. I'm speculating. I honestly don't know. I was there last year. I was 16.5 minutes, I think I finished it in. Won the trial. But yeah, I'd say everything's geared towards the Worlds this year. Kind of like planning the year that most all my races are uphill bar ATC and trying to cross to Mont Blanc. I think 2 weeks before the Worlds trial, I have an uphill race, Monty du Ventoux. Finishes down Mont Ventoux. It's pretty it's like I want to do that race because Mont Ventoux, iconic in cycling folklore. So I want to do it just to say it's been up there. It was a race that I spoke about with my dad before, so gonna do that. That's 12K uphill, 1,600 meters. So
Nice.
It's a nice distance. It's a nice elevation game that's suited for September, providing they get onto the team. And yeah, want to get onto the team. I think that'll be 12 or 13 caps now for Ireland. I think so. I want to get on the team. I pretty much just want to try and get as close to 2022 form as I can. Canfranc is a very beautiful place. I think I was second there in the VK in 2022, and yeah, it's a race. The course profile suits me, steep, runnable. So yeah, everything like me and my coach sat down back in February there and planned the season, and pretty much everything's geared towards it. So hopefully the stars align and everything goes well this summer, then I'm able to arrive in Canfranc in good shape, ready to give it a good go.
Will you go out there before then?
Plan is to go to Fontenoy because it's a 4 hour drive from Canfranc, so the plan will be to go out there for 3-4 weeks.
And you've been to Canfranc before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the World Cup in 2022.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the plan. Providing all goes to plan. Obviously, I've learned over the last wee while not to plan too far ahead because obviously things can happen that just different things can happen where just side sort of take you off track a wee bit. And yeah, sort of like right, providing everything goes well, we'll go to altitude for 3 or 4 weeks in September and then go straight to Canfranc from there because it works out better for traveling wise.
And that's basically a month after ETC, isn't it? The Worlds.
Yeah, yeah. I think a few days before ETC is actually the around the World Cup. It's actually going over the 2026 European Championships course. Logistics for that to fly from here to Slovenia to Geneva are not easy. So probably closer to the time I'll maybe have to sit down and explore the logistics a little bit more. I would like to go to Slovenia, but obviously ETC is an important race for New Balance, so it's kind of like weighing up your options. You need to be, obviously, you don't want to be riding ETC busted from travel, but at the same time, you don't want to mess out the chance to race on a course that you're going to hopefully be racing in 2026. So just have to see what happens.
So that's basically 2025 taken care of, qualify for Worlds, run a load of uphill races, do ETC,
pretty much,
and then go back to Worlds and hopefully have a great result. One of the things, like, some people have asked me to ask, and I'm interested myself as well, is like, what's like the 5 year sort of plan look like? Obviously these are things on the long finger, so to speak, but what's in the bucket list? What are you wanting to achieve? What do you think you can achieve over the next 5 years?
The next 5 years, obviously I haven't even thought of 2026 at all. So the next 5 years is very hard to say. Personally, I just want to continue enjoying the sport. I'm loving every single minute of what I'm doing now. So the longer I can keep going as a professional, the better, because I feel that I'm still not finished. I think 2022 was only a glimpse of what I think I can do.
2022, you were fifth at Worlds, right?
Fourth in Europe, joint fourth at the Europeans. I was fifth in the World Championships and third in the World Cup. So, like, I think back then
It was an incredible year.
I was only scratching the surface of what I think I can do, because I'm fitter, I'm stronger than what I was in 2022. Obviously, 2023 and 2024, for personal reasons, just did not come off for me at all. So, personally, those 2 years are just scratch them away. But yeah, I want to try and do a lot more new races. I don't want to be stuck doing the same races all the time. There's a lot of races like I would like to try, like the K2 Valtellina, double VK, stuff like that. It's just something that's different, something that you don't do all the time. And yeah, I just like to try and maybe explore a few more different countries in terms of what races they have to offer and whatnot. And ultimately, it's just try and be in the sport for as long as I can at the highest level, and enjoy it. And hopefully, if I can have a good time along the way, that's all that matters. And like, I'm 29 now. I'm 30 here in November, so like I'm on the wrong side of 25, I keep saying. So
Give over.
I just want to I want to try and just keep going and just enjoy it. And if I can get a few good results along the way, albeit Ireland's produced some great mountain runners over the past number of years. If I can be held in the same breath as like John Lennon and Robbie Bryson, I'll count myself as that's a good career.
I think you're already up there or on the road to being up there.
Not quite. I haven't won the World Championships yet. Lennon has, and until I've done that, I cannot be held in the same breath as him. That's my opinion.
Yeah. He what he did. What year was that?
91.
91. That was unbelievable. Any plans to go back to Broken Arrow? That's a World Mountain Run Association Plus Golden Trail.
Yeah.
I believe the reason the Mont Blanc Marathon sponsorship ended was because they wanted to put more money into that event.
I don't know the reason why they dropped it, to be quite honest with you, because I don't follow Golden Trail Runs on social media, so I don't really follow a lot of runners on Instagram. I'm quite.
That wasn't public.
No, it wasn't that. No, well, that's that's what I'm saying. I'm not in the loop. No, I'm not going to Broken Arrow this year. I've been there twice, and absolutely incredible race. Highly recommend if anyone wants to race it to get out and do it, because the course is unbelievable. It's probably it's 25K. And like, I ran it last year, and that was my longest ever race, and I absolutely loved every single minute of it, because it was one of the races where I finally felt, after a year and a half of crap results and just not feeling myself, I felt I was able to compete. I was like top 20, which wasn't expected. To be honest with you, getting around it was probably the main goal, but to be top 20, I was absolutely delighted with. But the atmosphere, the hospitality from the organizer Brendan is outstanding. Palisades Tahoe itself, the ski village, is it's just America. And even going to San Francisco and staying with Paddy O'Leary and his wife, it's probably one of the biggest cities I've ever been in. When I'm walking about there, we fell from Dramar, like, about San Francisco, and I'm like, what's going on here? But no, I'm not going back this year. As I say, I wanted to stay in Europe for this summer, but I'm not closing the door on going back next year or even beyond that, because it's a sort of race. Once you go once, you want to go back again, which is obviously when I went in 2023. I said before I left San Francisco, I said I'll go back here next year. And
What was it like? Because you had a good race, you enjoyed that race, but it's at the upper limit of what you like the race, plus it's at altitude.
upper limit, 100% upper limit, because I'm starting, like, I can't go off hard in that race. I like to go on, I like to do a race, start hard, finish hard, like empty the tank. But I knew in myself, I said, if I go off hard here, I'm gonna, I'm gonna blow up. And I say, I think I was like just inside top 50 at halfway. But whenever we got to the highest point, the highest point, there were people dropping like flies, and some top runners were dropping. And I'm like, Zach, if you just need to keep this rhythm, don't surge here. Don't be trying to like catch boys in front of you so soon. Let them come to you. I was doing that. I just had a really good race strategy that day. I think I the altitude actually didn't affect me that much, believe it or not. I didn't feel any like dizziness or anything. I just knew that if I keep the effort level sensible and don't go mad on the uphill and try and save time in the downhill, everything will be alright. As I say, come the last 3 mile, picked up like a group of five, and the five of us were emptying each other along the final stretch of single trail before we came onto the fire road, the last mile. When I came round, for some reason, I just found another gear, and first time ever dropping someone on the downhill on the way I went, and got over the line and rang the bell. They have a big, massive cowbell, and the whole carry on is ring that bell. I rang the bell and clapped. It was just like, yeah, that was good. But the atmosphere, I think it's because you're Irish as well. The Americans just think this is brilliant, and then you have X, Y, and Z. People saying, "Oh, my family's from County Clare or whatever." You know the.
I'm quarter Irish.
Yes, exactly. And I've actually, believe it or not, in 2023, I bumped into coming down to get the ski lift down into the village, and I was tying my shoelace, and I heard this accent from home, and I turned around, and he just all I got was, "Is that Zak Hanna?" And I looked around, and I was like, "Well, you're not a local." And he's no, he's from Mayo Bridge. 20 minutes from where I live. I have like 3,000
It,
miles of
it happens to us wherever we go.
It's unbelievable. I would say, and I actually bumped into a fella at the finish line this year from Dungannon. He lives in America now, and I'm like, doesn't matter where you go. There's always someone close to home, never too far away. And yeah, Broken Arrow, get it on your bucket list. I highly recommend it. So tell Brandon I'll send this over.
Well, I'm going this year, but I'm not gonna. I haven't entered any races, but I'm going over to Crew at States.
Yes, that's
So I'm going
I've
over this
seen.
before.
I got the picture with me beside the start line of Western States, and no, that's not just letting you know that's not going to happen anytime soon either. But no, to be there and to see that actual sign's pretty cool, because you realise like how many legendary runners have actually stood there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a pretty cool place. Like it doesn't American races aren't they aren't like the European or the Irish ones. Like they're super hyped and really, really good. To be honest with you, the start line and finish line of Broken Arrow just a wall of sound. And it really does help you get a new lease of life when you're coming past them.
Yeah, I think the friendliness of the American trail running scene has some sort of similarity to the homely feel that you get with fell running.
Yes.
There's a community feel to it that you don't get in other forms of running.
I
Even though
agree.
it's very American and
Yeah,
like
well,
fell running is very British and Irish, but there's connection there.
there is a connection. Obviously, the American culture is just completely different to what we're used to. Like, I know myself, I'm quite introverted, so it gets to a point. It got to a point one. I think it was after I'd finished the race this year. I'd sat for half an hour talking to different runners. The winner Eli Hemming and Christian Allen, all those boys who I've raced with in the past and been friendly with, and got to the point where the noise just sort of got to me. And I'm like, I need to go back to the apartment here. And I went back and I just lay down for 2 or 3 hours.
Decompress.
I had to decompress. That's how hyped up it is. But it's fantastic. You're sort of when I got changed and got something to eat, I was just turned the phone off. I just sat in pure silence, and I'm thinking that was brilliant. That's what you want. I think whenever you're able to sit down at the end of a race, doesn't matter how bad a run you had, if you're able to say that the atmosphere and the overall feeling of being at that race is good, that's always a good sign. As you say, the fell running, the homely feel to it, it's brilliant. But whenever you go abroad, even the continent, it's just a completely different world.
Yeah, yeah. As we kind of start to wrap this up, um, maybe we could just touch a little bit more on inspirations. You know, you mentioned John Lenihan and local people who have done well outside of the country. Who else in your life or in the scene or globally has kind of inspired you or do you look up to?
I'd say if you were to look more, if you were to say first thing, my parents, mum and dad, because obviously they got me into sport from a very young age, and have been super, super encouraging right from when I decided I wanted to quit my job to go and become a full time runner and then turn it professional. You know, there's never been any everything I decided to do, they've been behind it. So obviously, you need to give them a shout out. And I'm trying to think else is there. If you look, I'd say yeah, on the spot there now, because I never, it's not something I think about a lot, to be quite honest with you. Who's my inspirations outside of my mum and dad?
Well, sometimes that might just be enough.
I do think it is enough, but I think as well, you need to have someone you look at and run as well, because you sort of need to have something to aspire to. Obviously, you don't want to be the same as them, but you want to try and reach the levels they did. Obviously, you've got John Lennon, been lucky enough to meet that man twice, and like, as you're standing beside, whenever you hear the stories about him and see photos of him winning that title in Switzerland, you try to think, you know, that man was a dairy farmer from County Kerry that went and won the biggest title in mountain running. Like, and you know, saying I got his book, and I think it's just class that he done that.
I remember his book kind of did the rounds with a collection of people here, and I borrowed it for I think one July we were up. I was
Mm-hmm.
away camping, and I had it and I read it, and it's an incredible story.
Oh, it is.
But his background is a similar background to so many of the greats
Yeah.
in these islands.
Josh Naylor, Kenny Stewart, they all come from just
They,
working class, humble
but also,
backgrounds.
you know, just brought up walking the fields,
Pretty much.
herding animals,
Yep.
lifting hay, whatever it is, just like a simple, moving upbringing.
Well, that's it. I think that, as I say, it's a simple, humble upbringing sort of, I think, plays into a lot of good athletes' careers, because it sort of brings you back that if you get too carried away with where you are now and you forget about where you came from, it's kind of like, you know, you're sort of disrespecting your family, you're disrespecting your community. But like for me, um, I think it was someone had said to me I have a very similar upbringing to Lennon, but I was like, no, he's a farmer, I'm not a farmer. I have animals, I have goats, I have chickens, I have horses, but it's not a farm. That's just it's just, you know, I have animals. I like to keep animals. I like when I'm at home. I live a very simple lifestyle. I'm not, apart from running, I've got my goats there who are a great crack to play with. You
Do
know,
you have a tractor?
I have a Massey 135, which is a ride-on lawnmower.
You could be a form of a farmer.
It's a ride-on lawnmower decked up to look like a Massey 135, and I need to get it cleaned up. It's actually because it's sat all winter inside. Well, it does go out in the snow. I do a bit of drifting in the snow in it now, which is good fun. Trying to think more inspirations. I like marathon runners. I've actually been watching a YouTube series out at the minute, Clayton Young and Connor Mance, the American marathon runners. Very, I think because watching their documentaries, just it's raw. It's not, and there's no one of this glorifying how hard running is. It's just to go out and do the miles, and you just do it. And I think the two of the Connor and Clayton have brilliant runs at the Paris Olympics this year, and those two, I have a lot of respect for those two, and as well, Emile Caress, he was fourth in the Paris Olympics. He's from Leeds. Like,
Yeah.
that's mad. I was lucky enough to actually share a couple of runs with him in Kenya back in 2024, and I think whenever you're able to actually run the same roads and share a training run with boys like that who are going and achieving stuff like finishing top four in the Olympics, you know, it's hard not to be inspired by that. For me personally, and if you go over to mountain and trail running, you know, Kenny Stewart, John Latham, then if you go longer, Walmsley. You know, Walmsley, because I have a lot of respect for him since he tried to qualify for the Olympic trials back in the 2016, 2017.
Yeah, I forget the year.
When he tried to qualify for the Tokyo or Rio. But like to do that and then to go on and do what he done, the ultra stuff's pretty class, and he's a good guy because I remember speaking to him last year at the VK at the finish of the VK in Broken Arrow, and I was on the ground half dead, and he came up and talking away to him and walked down, got the cable car down the gallery. He's just a real good guy, you know. And I think that's what running has, a lot of good people. I think for me, I love runners who just go and do the results, aren't spouting on social media. Who just stay quiet and let the results do the talking. That those are the boys that I look up to the most.
You've done. It feels like in the winter or in the off season, you've done a lot of. You do cross country every year. You do road races and things like this, and that's like working on speed.
Yeah.
But you're a runner that actually you do like whenever I look at your Strava, going back all the years, like
Mhm.
you've always been doing speed work.
Oh
Like
yeah,
I see you doing speed work more than I ever see you doing hill reps.
yeah. Well, whenever I started being coached by Richard, pretty much if you want to run fast in the hills, you have to run fast in the flat, and you only have to look back at Kenny Stewart and John Lennon, and those are two runners who I stick to this day that they done that.
Well, Lennon, he used to win road races.
63 minute half marathon. He's the course record for it, well, the championship record for the Irish half marathon championships.
Still,
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
and
And he was probably wearing what could only be
I
described as rubbish shoes now.
100%. And then Kenny Stewart's 211 marathon runner, won the Houston Marathon back in the day. And like, if you got anyone, I can just have that book Running Hard and go back and look at even John Wilde and Kenny Stewart in 1883 when they were going toe to toe in the British Federal Championships. Kenny was doing mile reps at 4:30 pace on the dark road, holding ahead, just torch in his hand. And like Kenny, Kenny actually explained his reason. He said you can run too much in the hills slows you down, especially the shorter stuff, which is what I do. So if I was just to go out and focus running the hills all the time, I do notice if I ran 2 weeks of just pure hills, I would slow down. Whereas when I go out to flat remote here, I have like my plan set that yes, I'm going to be doing a lot of easy running in the hills, but I'm going to have track sessions in there too.
So you'll be doing track work. Will you also be doing VK type of
Yep.
like working intensity on steep grades?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. No, obviously you have ski slopes all around you in the flat remote, so obviously you need to find one that's long enough, 4 or 5 minutes in length. That's going to let me to do my reps. And yeah, obviously when I come back here as well, I'll be doing a lot of work up in the mornings too. I have a couple of favorite sessions I like to do in the morning to sort of give me an indicator of where I'm at. It's not just so much an indicator of where I'm at, but I know that if I do this session down the line, it's going to stand me in good stead because I know that that session probably kick-started to build a new build in fitness. And it's the sort of thing where if I can continue to run fast on the road, like I do feel better when I do a track session to go into a mountain race because you can keep the cadence up, you can suffer a bit longer, and yeah, it doesn't make things easier. It just makes you more efficient at running uphill. Essentially, I know it might be counterproductive. People think, well, to run uphill quick, just run uphill more. What slows you down? If you need to have the leg turnover to be able to actually run uphill quick.
Yeah. I think personally, I just don't enjoy running fast on the flat, but whenever I do it, because my coach makes me do it,
Yes.
I feel like when I'm running uphill,
Yeah.
I'm able to, I can reach a higher heart rate and sustain it.
Yeah, well, no, as I say, everyone's different. Like what might work for me might work for you, or what works for you might work for me.
Probably guaranteed.
Yeah, but it's that's what I'm saying. Running's very individualized. Like you see all these generic running plans, like you can't you can't do that in my opinion. Like I know what I've learned from my own coach Richard, and obviously other coaches that I've been in the company with. I'm always asking questions about them. I'm very interested in the science of the sport. So being able to go and work out, like, well, if he's doing that, I wonder could I maybe try and put a bit of that into my own training? I'm actually listening. I can't have the book at home, but can't find it. Training for the uphill athlete.
Yes.
So I'm listening to that on Spotify at the minute. Just something to go back to, and obviously there's obviously golden nuggets in there that you can pick up that you can take in your own training and just try and tweak things. But yeah, I think it's worked for me in the past. Obviously, there's a few things I want to change just to try and get a different stimulus out of it. We'll see how that goes. But I'm very content with where I'm at the minute. So if I can go out the front row and get a good base level of fitness built before starting the race on 24th of May, we'll be in a good place.
If you keep reading that book, Scott Johnson will have you going up a hill with 10 kilos in your backpack.
Not a chance. We're not David Goggins here. No chance. Not a hope.
Last thing before we wrap it up, I do want to talk to you a little bit about trail running and the Olympics.
Okay.
I know you have an opinion on this from, you shared it must be a couple of years ago, and like looping into what's happened with the Golden Trail, where they have the flower format, and now this season the flower format is actually going to be, I think, in the third round of the series. So it's not just going to be at the finale. What's your thoughts on trail running in the Olympics from whatever angle you want to take that?
It will happen, I think, but it's the politics of what distance goes into it. That's going to be the sticking point. You know, do you put the VK in? Do you put the classic? Do you put 50k? Do you put 80k? Where do you go? What distance do you put in? Obviously,
VK would be amazing.
VK would be amazing. Obviously, I'm being biased in that, but you're saying that as an ultraman.
Well, you could literally it's very easy to watch that or
get a drone just to follow the whole thing. You know, filming for me, I think it's perfect. But as I say, you're not if they said right, say if the IOC came out and said right, mountain runners in the Olympics, we're going to put the VK in the classic, then you're going to get the Ultraman giving off saying, well, why's that on it? You're never going to keep everyone happy. That's a fact.
But with running, it's like, you know, all distances I don't think need to be covered. Like I don't think trail running in the Olympics should be held back because they don't know what format or what way to do ultra, because ultra is very different. It's just like even the difference between a 50k and a 100 mile is they're just completely different races. Like 50k is essentially like marathon.
Yeah,
it's that, you know, it's that you can train for it that way.
Pretty much.
It's that level, it's that amount of time. But what do you think is most likely going to happen? Do you think the flower format would be adopted?
I don't know about the flower format because, to be honest with you, I remember I tuned in for all 10 minutes at the finale of the Golden Trail last year on YouTube and I turned it off. Obviously, I don't really watch a lot of trail running on TV. If it's on YouTube, I'll not watch it. I like to switch off. If I'm not racing, I'll not really watch it as such. But I remember watching a bit of it. It just didn't look that great. As much as it was made to be out this and the way forward for spectating, I didn't think it was overly great. So if that's taken on board, I don't know. But there's a working group I'm part of at the minute, which is working. Obviously, it's not solely focused on Olympics and mountain running and trail running in the Olympics. It's more geared toward like getting World Athletics involved in it more. But one of the topics is the Olympics. And say it's a subject that's to say it's very touchy. If that's the best way to put it, because nobody knows what way it's going to go.
People are precious about it, and
Very
they don't
precious.
want it to change. They don't want the sport to change just for it to get there.
Well, you see, cross country mountain biking has come in. Now the races are no longer than 90 minutes, but they're held over laps. But you've seen the film footage of how they film those races. Like, there's no reason as to why they couldn't just have like a VK or a classic or something up to 2 hours and filming that there. But I think if they were so focused on the one distance, you're gonna put a lot of people out. Whereas you see the VK, that's just my personal opinion. I love to see the VK. Obviously, I'd be looking to go for that, but it's a long way away yet. I don't think it's going to happen in LA 2028. I think it's more so, maybe 2032 Brisbane. I think is it Brisbane that the statement was released about that. So if it happens, it happens. But you just have to wait and see. And say there's a touchy subject for many, and obviously you have the commercial aspects of different sponsors like don't want it because it's going to take away their involvement with it, and maybe brands do want to get involved. It's hard to know. As I say, I'm only one man. I can't change the sport, so you sort of need to have everyone united. But it's very, very hard to do.
Well, as one of Ireland's top mountain runners, your voice is listened to, so it's important to have an opinion on it, I guess.
Oh, it is important to have an opinion, and opinion's good. A difference of opinion's good because then it only hopefully long term it benefits everyone. You don't want long term for the sport, like you don't want one group of people being left out because the focus is on one event. You need to cater for everyone to keep everyone happy. It's the only way the sport's going to develop and get better, in my opinion.
Great. All right. We'll leave it at that. Zach, thanks for coming on Trail Talk.
Not a bother. It was a good chat.